So we have some interesting news regarding a possible new addition to the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division. Now, the timing of this is obviously very interesting as well, because last week it was confirmed that one half of the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Tag Team Champions, a former Knockouts champion herself, Jordynne Grace, has re-signed with the company, and it looks like that Impact Wrestling will be adding a new name, or a returning name, to the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division in the very near future. And you can see who it is, of course, on the right-hand there section of the screen, and that is former WWE NXT UK Superstar and a former Mae Young Classic competitor Killer Kelly is set to sign with Impact Wrestling. Now, obviously, this won't be her first appearance for Impact Wrestling, but Impact Wrestling will reportedly be adding Killer Kelly to their Knockouts division in the very near future. Now, Kelly participated in a handful of Impact Wrestling television tapings in November while she was in the United States, and during that period of time, she reportedly impressed the Impact Wrestling officials with her performance and the way she carried herself backstage. Now, Fightful Select, which of course is Fightful's Patreon service, be sure to check them out. They do a very good job breaking a lot of exclusive news and insider information, so if that's your kind of thing, be sure to subscribe to them on Patreon. Fightful Select are reporting that there was an immediate interest in signing Killer Kelly to a full-time contract with Impact Wrestling after she made those appearances with the company in November. But obviously there are a few complications with regards to signing her because she's not from the United States. Due to Kelly being from Portugal, a number of things are required to be sorted out before she can officially sign with the company, and she returned home to Europe, where she has been ever since her appearances for Impact Wrestling. Now, the interest, per the report from Fightful, is still there from Impact Wrestling, and they are determined to sign Killer Kelly to a contract and bring her back to the United States. But having initially planned to return to the United States in January, this has not been possible for Killer Kelly due to the Portuguese embassy being closed for interviews as a result of the global COVID-19 pandemic. But it seems, though, that Kelly will be appearing regularly on Impact Wrestling television sooner rather than later. Kelly previously performed, of course, as I mentioned before, in NXT UK and also competed in the 2018 Mae Young Classic. So when she was doing those appearances for Impact back in November, December time, I think she had matches against the likes of Kimberly, and that's on Impact Wrestling Television. She was part, I think, as well of the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament too. So I was impressed by her. I've been impressed whenever I've seen her, not just in Impact, of course, but in NXT UK and obviously in the Mae Young Classic. As I mentioned at the top of the video, this is really good news for Impact because the Knockouts division is a staple of their company. It's a cornerstone of their company. And I don't really want to be repeating myself with the same things that I said during the Jordynne Grace video I did about her re-signing with the company, but it's the same points. It's the same thing that I always say about Impact Wrestling and their Knockouts division, is that the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division isn't just a cornerstone of the company. It's a real point of difference to a lot of companies, certainly in North America. For me, and I know recently I've been quite critical of the WWE Women's Division, to be honest. I think the WWE Women's Division on Raw and SmackDown, not so much on NXT, because I do think their booking is pretty good of the Women's Division right now. The talent that WWE has on their roster in terms of female talent is better than anywhere else in the world. It just is. It's beyond question. You've got the likes of Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, Io Shirai, Asuka. The list can go on and on. Rhea Ripley. The list can go on and on. It really is. It's an embarrassment of riches, to be honest, of the amount of talent that they have in the company right now for WWE. The issue that WWE has right now, and my issue as a fan watching WWE programming, is that the booking of the female talent is horrendous. It really is horrendous. The storylines that are involved for them right now, the writing that's involved with them right now on the Monday Night Raw side of things, and I know we're talking about Impact here, but I'm getting to something. The Monday Night Raw side of things at the moment is horrendous when it comes to female talent. Rhea Ripley, I don't know what she is. Is she a heel? Is she a babyface? 1 week she's one week she's the other. It's very, very confusing. Charlotte Flair, I don't necessarily have a problem with Charlotte Flair. I know a lot of people do. I don't really think that's her own doing. You can't do much with the position that you're put in my opinion. What are you going to say if someone says, we want you to be involved in this match, we want you to be involved in this feud, we want you to main event WrestleMania? What's she supposed to say? No. It's very difficult. So I think Charlotte Flair, there's just this weird fascination with her from the WWE officials and Vince McMahon and all that kind of stuff, which is what it is, I don't know. You've got Asuka being a cartoon character on Monday Night Raw, and I'm not sure what she does, and she's one of the most talented talents that they have on that Raw roster, just in the WWE roster, male or female. And SmackDown, you've got people like Sasha Banks and Bayley and Bianca Belair on that show, but that show's female storylines are centered around Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, with Reginald being the centerpiece of that. It's bizarre. It's just so bizarre and doesn't make any sense. And it's archaic and it's dinosaur booking, and it's ridiculous. But irrespective of all of that, WWE, in my opinion, still does have the best women's division in the world. If you count Raw, SmackDown, NXT, just the sheer amount of talent they have at their disposal. And the NXT women's division is very strong, and it's actually booked relatively well. The amount of talent they have available to them, it is the best women's division in the world, and WWE does have a commitment to women's wrestling. I mean, one half of the WrestleMania main event this year, WrestleMania 37 Night 1, was Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. You've had females main event WrestleMania 2 out of the last 3 years. There is obviously a significant commitment to women's wrestling, and they have progressed women's wrestling significantly in WWE. You can't argue against that. But in my opinion, if you write off WWE being the best women's division in the world, second to me, and I think it is a close second, is Impact Wrestling. And that's because of their just sheer commitment to women's wrestling. Their commitment of having female talents in the main event, having female talents main events, not just television shows, but pay-per-views, TV specials, in a variety of different kinds of matches. They've got a thriving tag team division, a women's tag team division, which WWE can't do. NXT, they're kind of getting there. They've done a bit of hot potato with those women's tag team championships, to be honest. I thought they had a fantastic main event last week for those tag team titles, though. But Impact Wrestling, they really do have a thriving knockouts division. And there was a bit of concern from myself, and I think quite a few Impact Wrestling fans we understand the situation with Impact Wrestling that they're in at the moment, in the fact that once a talent's contract expires, there's going to be interest from the likes of WWE and AEW, and it's very difficult for Impact Wrestling to retain that talent just because the exposure's far bigger. But by re-signing a name like a Jordan Grace or someone like that, they're making a statement, Impact Wrestling rather, they're making a statement that they still are committed to women's wrestling and are committed to retaining their big stars. And Taya Valkyrie going to WWE was a big loss for Impact Wrestling, but I think if you look at the future as to where the Knockouts division is heading, when it comes to, again, Jordan Grace is staying, they've got Rachel Ellering's coming, Deonna Purrazzo is just... There's a debate for her being one of the best female wrestlers on the planet today. She's just been doing that unbelievable amount of work for Impact Wrestling. Everything's just been top-notch, getting better and better and better. Now you've got the likes of Killer Kelly coming back in on a full-time basis. That's a massive tick. You've also got rumours of the likes of the Iconics maybe coming in. I think Chelsea Green coming in at this point is probably a lock. So you've got those names coming in as well. The future, if it wasn't already, is very bright for the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division. And it's very exciting because they certainly have a commitment to women's wrestling, and it's a cornerstone of their show. It's always been. The Impact Wrestling Knockouts division in 2007-2008 was one of the highest drawing segments of the show on Spike TV when you had the Gail Kims and the Awesome Coms. Taylor Wilde's now back in the fold, and she looked like somehow she's better than when she left. It's the Knockouts division, after being in a position where there was a bit of concern for people like Taya Valkyrie leaving, now it's got to the point of Killer Kelly, maybe the Iconics, maybe Chelsea Green, Taylor Wilde, Deonna Purrazzo, Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering, Fire and Flavor. It's a really strong division emerging for Impact Wrestling. It was always strong, but it's maybe an even stronger division emerging, and that's very exciting. That's very exciting as a fan and as an avid viewer of Impact. I think this is fantastic. Now, how long will it take? We don't know. This is part of the problem with the pandemic, really, isn't it? Is that these kind of issues when it comes to international visas, work permits, whatever you want to call them, because of the pandemic and because of countries being in different situations. Obviously, like I mentioned in the report, Killer Kelly's from Portugal. We don't know the situation when it comes to Portugal right now, and the Portuguese embassy in the United States. It can be very confusing and it can be very difficult. And COVID just has delayed everything when it comes to that. So she will get there at some point. It's just a case of how long it takes. We don't know, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later. But we'll have to wait and see. Another thing I did want to talk about before we wrap it up is this Booker T and Impact Wrestling AEW report that he's kind of been speaking about. He made some comments a couple of weeks ago, Booker T, and he does this as part of his podcast, to be honest, to get people talking about his podcast. So on the latest episode of the Hall of Fame podcast, Booker T spoke of the criticism he received for comments he made on a previous episode of his podcast regarding Kenny Omega becoming the Impact World Champion. Now, Booker T stated that Impact Wrestling gained nothing by having Omega win the World Championship, and said, quote, he doesn't know what the company is thinking right now. Despite this, and this is why his comments to me are completely invalidated by this bit of information here. So he's saying, I don't know what Impact Wrestling gained. What are they doing? They're putting their world title on someone else from another company. It's worth remembering here, Impact Rebellion was reportedly Impact Wrestling's most successful pay-per-view in years. And when I say years, it's Anthem's most successful Impact Wrestling pay-per-view they've ever done. Since they purchased the company from Dixie Carter back in 2017, Anthem have never done a successful pay-per-view as successful as this past Impact Rebellion pay-per-view. So that's what Impact Wrestling gained. They gained success, they gained exposure, they gained eyeballs, they gained money from putting on a successful pay-per-view event. It's just, it's very, very strange. Now, obviously, people are going to look at it and say, well, the television ratings are slightly down and all that kind of stuff. Television ratings are down anyway. And I know we cover them on the channel here, and I don't want to be accused of being a hypocrite or having a double standard because I've criticized the likes of Monday Night Raw for having low ratings. That is very true. But I think if you're nitpicking at viewership and ratings and all that kind of stuff, I always say this. It is it's a part of the picture. It's not the whole image. That's all it is, okay? You have to look at the success that Impact have received from this AEW working relationship, and I think some of the criticisms there are valid. I know some Impact Wrestling fans are kind of like, enough, and maybe the AEW talent is being featured too much on the show, and it's kind of turning some of the hardcore Impact Wrestling fans away. It's a good point. But I didn't think Booker T's comments, I really didn't agree. Now, Booker T's kind of feels like at this point that his comments are justified now because AEW wrestler, superstar, whatever you want to call him, Chris Jericho, also made comments recently regarding the AEW and Impact Wrestling working relationship, saying that AEW is on a completely different level to Impact Wrestling. Booker T that said that he agrees with Jericho and doesn't believe he signed up to wrestle in AEW to also wrestle for another company like Impact. This is what Booker T had to say. And now, not only do I think it wasn't a good idea, Chris Jericho was talking, and the question was asked about an invasion angle between Impact and AEW, and he said he didn't think that would be a good idea at all. I just did not think it was a good idea. Now, am I wrong, or is Chris Jericho wrong? Chris Jericho could have been in character, playing a role, but his comments were that he was never going to be seen inside of an Impact Wrestling ring in front of an empty arena. It's never going to happen. Again, with that, it's surprising that Booker T, the guy's a two-time Hall of Famer, and he's got such a long history in pro wrestling, but he's being worked. He's being worked. He's being worked by Jericho in an interview. Jericho says it there. You won't see me inside of an Impact Wrestling ring in an empty arena. Well, the empty arenas aren't going to be around for that much longer. The reports have come up recently. Impact Wrestling are already looking at getting back to doing television tapings in front of a crowd. MLW, when is it, July? They're doing TV tapings in front of a crowd. Impact Wrestling are already looking to do television tapings on the road. They've already looked at Las Vegas being a possible destination to do their first TV taping with crowds in attendance. So by Jericho saying, look, you're not going to see me in an Impact Wrestling ring in an empty arena, that's just because that's in 2 months' time, there's going to be Impact Wrestling rings with people actually in attendance. So who's to say in a couple months' time Chris Jericho won't be on an Impact Wrestling show? Who's to say that? Chris Jericho was this close in the past to coming to Impact Wrestling. He said it. Don Callis said it. They had discussions. They had negotiations. Chris Jericho met with Don Callis, Scott D'Amore, Ed Nordholm. They'd worked out an agreement. They worked out dates. They'd worked out storylines and all that kind of stuff. They'd worked out money, which of course is very important to Chris Jericho because he demands that higher fee. Impact could afford it. Anthem could afford it. What happened? Why didn't it happen in the end? Because AEW became a thing. This was around the time in 2018 when Jericho was working New Japan dates and he was figuring out what he wanted to do going forward. And then he gets the call from Tony Khan from saying, look, I'm going to be doing this AEW thing. We're going to be having all of these stars come over. We're going to be giving out these larger deals. We're going to compete with WWE. And then he realized, Chris Jericho, that this was the better option and he went to AEW. But it was really close to happening. And people that say that's not the case, it's just you're overlooking evidence. You're overlooking facts. It was the same with Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega was very close to coming to Impact Wrestling. He wasn't going to jump from New Japan by any stretch of the imagination, but he was going to try and do dates with the company. and that didn't happen because of AEW as well. So Booker T saying, look, Chris Jericho saying that AEW is on another level to Impact Wrestling. Well, it is. It is. No one is arguing. Nobody is trying to state here that AEW is the similar size company or a similar size organization to Impact Wrestling, because it's not. If you think that's the case, you are deluded. Impact Wrestling obviously has way more history than AEW, but at this point in time, they're a much smaller company than AEW. They're on a much smaller network. That's part of the problem with Impact Wrestling at the moment, is that Access TV, nobody has access to Access TV. TNT on Wednesday nights, they're drawing over 1 million live viewers for Dynamite, whereas Impact Wrestling on a Thursday on Access TV can get 120,000 viewers. Obviously, there's a massive disparity between that. So Jericho coming out saying that AEW is on a different plateau to Impact, of course it is. I think Impact Wrestling fans know that. The aim for Impact is to try and get back up the ratings. Are they ever going to get to 1 million viewers again? Not on Access TV. Certainly not on Access TV. That's not going to happen. No way. But Jericho again, oh, you won't see me inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. I have no doubts in my mind, and I don't know Chris Jericho personally. All I know is that of Chris Jericho, the businessman and the wrestler, and the guy that will do everything to get people talking about Chris Jericho and will do anything to get buzz on social media. He's very adept at doing that. He's very adept at doing that. If Chris Jericho thinks he can create some buzz, if Chris Jericho thinks he can get people talking about him by showing up at an Impact Wrestling television taping or appearing on an Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, he will do it. There is no doubt in my mind Chris Jericho hasn't looked at the success that Kenny Omega has had in Impact Wrestling, looked at the ratings when they did spike, pun intended, but the record, or not record, but the recent successful business that they did for Impact Wrestling Rebellion's pay-per-view, being Impact's most successful pay-per-view in years, there is no doubt in my mind Chris Jericho doesn't look at that success that Kenny Omega's had when it comes to either the ratings or it comes to the pay-per-views or anything like that, and he doesn't look at it and go, I can do better. I can do better. I can do it even better. And he's best friends with Don Callis. Don Callis is an executive vice president of Impact Wrestling. If Booker T or anyone thinks that Jericho not showing up in Impact Wrestling is impossible and it's never going to happen, I think that is way too narrow-minded and way too short-sighted. Once we start getting fans back into the arenas, anything can happen. Anything can happen. It's just not going to happen right now. But to say that something couldn't happen for Bound for Glory or maybe even Slammiversary, who knows? Who knows? So I think it's a bit narrow-minded by Booker T. And again, I think he's the initial statements of what does it gain? What does Impact Wrestling gain? Well, they gained a lot. They gained a significant amount because they had their best pay-per-view in a really long time. So I don't know. And maybe I'm biting. Maybe I've been fish hooked on it by Booker T because he wants to get people talking about him and his podcast. I know that Booker T has quite a lot of hot takes when it comes to the world of AEW and Impact Wrestling and WWE for that matter, whether it's the New Day or stuff like that. And he always says them on his podcast to get people talking about him. That's good business. That's good marketing. So I don't blame him for anything like that at all. I just think these ones about Impact and AEW, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Is it perfect? No. I think Impact and AEW, frankly, would probably have things that they would change about it. But so far, if you had to grade it, you would say that has been a success. It has been a success so far for both companies. And I expect it to continue in the future. Whatever that will look like, we'll have to wait and see. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Impact Wrestling signing Killer Kelly to a contract very soon, and Booker T's recent comments about the AEW and Impact Wrestling relationship not being a success and him not knowing what AEW are thinking about the working relationship? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.